Good morning, class 10. Let us continue the chapter Nationalism in Europe. Conservative regimes set up in 1815 were autocratic. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent, that means disagreement, and sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic governments. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs, and related the ideas of liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. The memory of the French Revolution nonetheless continued to inspire liberals. One of the major issues taken up by the liberal nationalists who criticized the new conservative order was freedom of press. The revolutionaries. During the years following 1815, the fear of repression drove many liberal nationalists underground. Secret societies sprang up in many European states to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. To be revolutionary at this time meant a commitment to oppose monarchical forms that had been established after the Vienna Congress and to fight for liberty and freedom. Most of these revolutionaries also saw the creation of nation states as a necessary part of this struggle for freedom. One such individual was the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. Underline this. Mazzini was a very important figure. Born in Genoa in 1807, he became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. Underline this also. As a young man of 24, he was sent into exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. He subsequently founded two more underground societies, first Young Italy in Marseilles and then Young Europe in Bern. Young Italy is very, very important. Often a one-mark question is asked, who founded the secret society Young Italy, or which secret society was founded by Mazzini. So you will write Young Italy, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy, and German states. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be the natural units of mankind. So, Italy could not continue to be a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. It had to be forged into a single unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. This unification alone could be the basis of Italian liberty. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Mazzini's relentless opposition to monarchy and his vision of democratic republics frightened the conservatives. Metternich described him as the most dangerous enemy of our social order. So, in this paragraph, you just have to remember that Young Italy was founded by Mazzini. Nothing much is there to learn on this page. The Age of Revolutions, 1830 to 1848. As conservative regimes tried to consolidate their power, liberalism and nationalism came to be increasingly associated with revolution in many regions of Europe, such as the Italian and German states, the provinces of the Ottoman Empire, Ireland, and Poland. These revolutions were led by the liberal nationalists belonging to the educated middle class elite, among whom were professors, school teachers, clerks, and members of the commercial middle class. The first upheaval took place in France in July 1830. The Bourbon kings, who had been restored to power during the conservative reaction after 1815, were now overthrown by liberal revolutionaries who installed a constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe at its head. When France sneezes, Metternich once remarked, the rest of Europe catches cold. This is a very famous statement said by Metternich. Underline this. When France sneezes, Metternich once remarked, the rest of Europe catches cold. The July Revolution sparked an uprising in Brussels, which led to Belgium breaking away from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. An event that mobilized nationalist feelings among the educated elite across Europe was the Greek War of Independence. Greece had been a part of the Ottoman Empire since the 15th century. The growth of revolutionary nationalism in Europe sparked off a struggle for independence among the Greeks which began in 1821. Nationalists in Greece got support from other Greeks living in exile and also from many West Europeans who had sympathies for ancient Greek culture. Poets and artists lauded Greece. Lauded means they praised Greece as the cradle of the European civilization and mobilized public opinion to support its struggle against the Muslim Empire. The English poet Lord Byron organized funds and later went to fight in the war, where he died of fever in 1824. Finally, the Treaty of Constantinople of 1832 recognized Greece as an independent nation. Now, in these paragraphs, you don't have to learn anything as such, only this last line is for learning. That is, the Treaty of Constantinople recognized Greece as an independent nation. Only this line you must remember, and the statement, when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches cold, said by Duke Metternich. The romantic imagination and national feeling. This is slightly important. The development of nationalism did not come about only through wars and territorial expansion. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Underline this line. This line is very important for a 1-mark question. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Art and poetry, stories and music helped express and shape nationalist feelings. Let us look at Romanticism, a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of nationalist sentiment. Now, in this line, children, often in a multiple choice question, it is asked Romanticism, a cultural movement, a religious movement, and 2 more options are given. So the correct option is cultural movement. That is why this line is very important for a 1-mark question, that Romanticism was a cultural movement. Here Romanticism refers to or symbolizes love for one's nation, the concept of nationalism. Romanticism, a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of nationalist sentiment. Romantic artists and poets generally criticized the glorification of reason and science and focused instead on emotions, intuition, and mystical feelings. Their effort was to create a sense of shared collective heritage, a common cultural past as the basis of a nation. Other romantics, such as the German philosopher Johann Gottfried Herder, claimed that true German culture was to be discovered among the common people, Das Volk. Underline this, because here a 1-mark question is often framed from these 3 lines. Das Volk, this meaning you should learn by heart. Das Volk refers to common people. So these 3 lines, starting from other romantics such as German philosopher till Das Volk, is very important. It was through folk songs, folk poetry, and folk dances that the true spirit of nation, folk gist, was popularized. Underline this line also. This is also important for a 1 mark question. It was through folk songs, folk poetry, and folk dances that the true spirit of nation, folk gist, was popularized. So, collecting and recording these forms of folk culture was essential to the project of nation building. The emphasis on vernacular language and the collection of local folklore means stories, was not just to recover an ancient national spirit but also to carry the modern nationalist message to large audiences who were mostly illiterate. This was especially so in the case of Poland, which had been partitioned at the end of the 18th century by the great powers Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Even though Poland no longer existed as an independent territory, nationalist feelings were kept alive through music and language. Karol Karpinski, for example, celebrated the national struggle through his operas and music, turning folk dances like the Polonaise and Mazurka into nationalist symbols. You don't have to learn anything in this paragraph. Language too played an important role in developing nationalist sentiments. After Russian occupation, the Polish language was forced out of schools and the Russian language was imposed everywhere. In 1831, an armed rebellion against Russian rule took place, which was ultimately crushed. Following this, many members of the clergy in Poland began to use language as a weapon of national resistance. Polish was used for church gatherings and all religious instruction. As a result, a large number of priests and bishops were put in jail or sent to Siberia by the Russian authorities as punishment for their refusal to preach in Russian. The use of Polish came to be seen as the symbol of the struggle against Russian dominance. Hunger, hardship, and popular revolt. There's nothing to learn in these paragraphs. I will tell you the important things which you have to learn for a very short question or for a lengthier one. The 1830s were years of great economic hardship in Europe. This is very important. The first half of the 19th century saw an enormous increase in population all over Europe. In most countries, there were more seekers of jobs than employment. Population from rural areas migrated to the cities to live in overcrowded slums. Small producers in towns were often faced with stiff competition from imports of cheap machine-made goods from England, where industrialization was more advanced than on the continent. This was especially so in the textile production, which was carried out mainly in homes or small workshops and was only partly mechanized. In those regions of Europe where the aristocracy still enjoyed power, peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues and obligations. The rise of food prices or a year of bad harvest led to widespread pauperism in town and country. Pauperism means state of being poor. Poverty kept on increasing. People became poorer and poorer. The year 1848 was one such year. Food shortages and widespread unemployment brought the population of Paris out on the roads. Barricades were erected and Louis Philippe was forced to flee. A national assembly proclaimed a republic granted suffrage to all adult males above 21, and guaranteed the right to work. Underline this line. National Assembly proclaimed a republic, granted suffrage to all males, adult males above 21. Suffrage means right to vote, and guaranteed the right to work. National workshops to provide employment were set up. Earlier, in 1845, weavers in Silesia had led a revolt against contractors who supplied them raw material and gave them orders for finished textiles, but drastically reduced their payments. The journalist Wilhelm Wolff described the events in a Silesian village as follows. In these villages, cotton weaving is the most widespread occupation. The misery of the workers is extreme. The desperate need for jobs has been taken advantage of by the contractors to reduce the prices of the goods they order. On 4th June at 2 pm, a large crowd of weavers emerged from their homes and marched in pairs up to the mansion of their contractor, demanding higher wages. They were treated with scorn and threats alternately. Following this, a group of them forced their way into the house, smashed its elegant window panes, furniture, porcelain. Another group broke into the storehouse and plundered it of supplies of cloth, which they tore to shreds. The contractor fled his family to a neighboring village, which, however, refused to shelter such a person. He returned 24 hours later, having requisitioned the army. In the exchange that followed, 11 weavers were shot. There is nothing to learn on this page. The revolution of the liberals. Parallel to the revolts of the poor, unemployed and starving peasants and workers in many European countries in the year 1848, a revolution led by the educated middle classes was underway. Events of February 1848 in France had brought about the abdication of the monarch, and a republic based on universal male suffrage had been proclaimed. In other parts of Europe where independent nation states did not yet exist, such as Germany, Italy, Poland, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, men and women of the liberal middle classes combined their demands for constitutionalism with national unification. They took advantage of the growing popular unrest to push their demands for the creation of a nation state on parliamentary principles, a constitution, freedom of press, and freedom of association. In the German regions, a large number of political associations whose members were middle class professionals, businessmen, and prosperous artisans came together in the city of Frankfurt and decided to vote for an all-German National Assembly. On 18th May 1848, 831 elected representatives marched in a festive procession to take their places in the Frankfurt Parliament convened in the Church of St. Paul. They drafted a constitution for a German nation to be headed by a monarchy subject to a parliament. When the deputies offered the crown on these terms to Frederick William IV, King of Prussia, he rejected it and joined other monarchs to oppose the elected assembly. While the opposition of the aristocracy and military became stronger, the social basis of parliament eroded. The parliament was dominated by the middle classes who resisted the demand of workers and artisans and consequently lost their support. In the end, troops were called in and the assembly was forced to disband. The issue of extending political rights to women was a controversial one. within the liberal movement, in which large numbers of women had participated actively over the years. Women had formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, and taken part in political meetings and demonstrations. Despite this, they were denied suffrage rights, means voting rights, during the election of the assembly. When the Frankfurt Parliament convened in the Church of St. Paul, women were admitted only as observers to stand in the visitors' gallery. Though conservative forces were able to suppress liberal movements in 1848, they could not restore the old order. Monarchs were beginning to realize that the cycles of revolution and repression could only be ended by granting concessions to the liberal nationalist revolutionaries. Hence, in the years after 1848, the autocratic monarchies of Central and Eastern Europe began to introduce the changes that had already taken place in Western Europe before 1815. Thus, serfdom and bonded labor were abolished both in the Habsburg dominance and in Russia. The Habsburg rulers granted more autonomy to the Hungarians in 1864. Now, children, in all these pages, you don't have to learn anything. There is nothing to learn as such, but at least one more reading done by you is very much needed. The making of Germany and Italy. This page and the next page is very important. The making of Germany and Italy. Germany. Can the army be the architect of a nation? After 1848, nationalism in Europe moved away from its association with democracy and revolution. Nationalist sentiments were often mobilized, that means they were moved by conservatives for promoting state power and achieving political domination over Europe. This can be observed in the process by which Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation states. Here, children, in your long answers for a 5-mark question, 2 questions are very important from this heading, that is unification of Germany and unification of Italy, that you have to learn by heart. As you have seen, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle-class Germans who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation-state governed by an elected parliament. This liberal initiative to nation building was, however, repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military, supported by large landowners called Junkers of Prussia. Now, here I am reading this again, pay attention. Nationalist feelings were widespread among middle-class Germans. Middle-class Germans were full of feelings of nationalism and patriotism, who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of German Confederation into a nation state governed by an elected parliament. So the middle class Germans wanted that small German states should be united under an elected parliament. This liberal initiative to nation building was repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military, supported by large landowners called Junkers of Prussia. First of all, you must underline large landowners called Junkers of Prussia, because this is often asked in a 1-mark question, that large landowners were called as dash. So you will write Junkers. So we have read that the idea of nation building was repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and the military, supported by the Junkers of Prussia. From then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. Keep on underlining, all these lines are going to be your answer for German unification. From then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck. Now, if you write only Bismarck, then also there is no problem, because Bismarck was a very famous figure in German unification. If you don't write Otto von Bismarck, there is no problem. You can write only Bismarck. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of this process, carried out with the help of the Prussian army and bureaucracy. So, we can give a lot of credit to Bismarck for unification of Germany. 3 wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark and France ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification. All these lines, children, are a part of your answer of German unification. In January 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. Here your answer of German unification will come to an end. On the bitterly cold morning of 18 January 1871, in assembly comprising the princes of the German states, representatives of the army, important Prussian ministers including the chief minister Otto von Bismarck, gathered in the unheated hall of mirrors in the palace of Versailles to proclaim the new German empire headed by Kaiser William I of Prussia. So, Kaiser William I and William I, as you have read in the previous paragraph, it is the same thing. He is the same personality. So, if you want to write Kaiser William I, it's also correct. And if you write Prussian King William I, then also it is correct. The nation building process in Germany had demonstrated the dominance of Prussian state power. The new state placed a strong emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, legal and judicial systems in Germany. Prussian measures and practices often became a model for the rest of the country. Now, unification of Italy. This is also very, very important. Italy unified. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. That means Italy was also divided into small states like Germany. Italians were scattered over several dynastic states as well as the multinational Habsburg Empire. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardinia Piedmont, was ruled by an Italian princely house. The north was under Austrian Habsburg, the center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. Even the Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variations. During the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini, pay attention. Now here in German unification, Otto von Bismarck was a famous figure, the most important figure. Here Giuseppe Mazzini, Garibaldi and Cavour. These 3 are the most important figures. As we will read, you will come to know. During the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for a unitary Italian republic. He had also formed a secret society called Young Italy. Underline, Mazzini formed a secret society called Young Italy for the dissemination of his goals. The failure of revolutionary uprisings both in 1831 and 1848 meant that the mantle now fell on Sardinia Piedmont under its ruler King Victor Emmanuel II to unify the Indian states through war. In the eyes of the ruling elites of this region, a unified Italy offered them the possibility of economic development and political dominance. Chief Minister Cavour, who led the movement to unify the regions of Italy, was neither a revolutionary nor a Democrat. Like many other wealthy and educated members of the Italian elite, he spoke French much better than he did Italian. Through a tactful diplomatic alliance with France engineered by Cavour, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces in 1859. Apart from regular troops, a large number of armed volunteers under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi joined the fray, that means joined the fight. In 1860, they marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of Two Sicilies and succeeded in winning the support of local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of United Italy. However, much of the Italian population, among whom rates of illiteracy were very high, remained blissfully unaware of liberal nationalist ideology. The peasant masses who had supported Garibaldi in southern Italy had never heard of Italia and believed that La Talia was Victor Emmanuel's wife. So in this, last 2-3 lines are not important at all, only the main incidents you have to learn, which I will send you in the form of question answers very soon. So in this chapter, remember Code Napoleon, Treaty of Vienna, and unification of Italy and Germany. These 4 things are very important. Now the next heading, that is the strange case of Britain, this we will do in our next class. Thank you, children.